Hey guys, and welcome to the Kurima podcast, where we talk about business, finance, entrepreneurship, and real estate. I'm your host, Jason Kurima, and I have Cody Weaver, all the way from Tupelo, Mississippi, joining me today. Man, it's a pleasure to have you, and I'm really grateful that you came.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So you have your digital marketing company, and then you have you're getting into real estate, and you've done several other ventures. Can you kind of tell us what all you have going on?
Yeah, so I'm pretty much a serial entrepreneur. I've had multiple businesses and multiple industries over the last 5 years. I actually hit my 5-year anniversary of being an entrepreneur last week, I believe. But I've built a few different businesses. I've 7-figure sales rep. Started in trucking as a sales rep there. Just now got into real estate, but yeah, my main thing now is we do branding, marketing. Ignited Digital Marketing is my company in Tupelo. We've been in business about 3 years. We've doubled the size of our company every year since we've been in business. So
that's very impressive.
It's been a blessing. We're very fortunate. We have a very good client retention rate. Matter of fact, my very first customer that I ever picked up to do internet marketing for, we built her website, did some search engine optimization, some Facebook stuff. Very first client I ever picked up. She's still with us today. So, and she's busier than she's ever been. So I like to think that we helped her get that way. So, but yeah, it's been a blessing. We started out as a local marketing company. We're located, downtown Tupelo. But through various different marketing efforts that we've done and networking and things like that, we're actually in 12 states now. We've got customers in 12 different states across the U.S., all the way from Washington State on the West Coast to Norfolk, Virginia. So,
wow, that's awesome.
And of course, real estate. Of course, I'm in the Capitalist Cartel group with you and a lot of others, and that group just kind of helped propel me into the real estate side. So I've got one property. And hoping to have my second under contract this week. So excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, it's addicting. Once you start buying properties, it's just like bam, bam, bam. You just keep knocking them out. So
it's a lot of fun. This first property that I've got, it's a single family home. It was a burnout that I got from a wholesaler. And so when we went and looked at the property and I walked through, being my first property, you think you got an idea of, okay, what can this property come back to? What condition can we get this to? What can I do with this property? But it's kind of overwhelming the very first time you walk through, especially something that's a burnout, that's down to the studs and everything's just black and smoke and soot. So it can be a little overwhelming. And one of the really cool things about flipping this property and bringing it back to life is walking through it now that it's just about ready to hit the market in a couple weeks. We're about to rent this property out, and you walk through it and you look around and how just nice and new everything is. And you're like, wow, just 2 months ago, this place was uninhabitable.
Exactly.
And to see it come back to life and to know that you came in there and you executed a plan and that it was your very first property to ever have this happen. It's really cool. It's a really cool process to be a part of, and it's addicting. Now it's like, okay, I've got one. Let's go get another.
Yeah, and that's pretty good. Like, you turned it around in about a month or 2 months, you said?
So we're 2 months into the rehab, and it should be finished this month. Yep. So it was down to the studs in the kitchen. I had a great I don't know I guess you call him a contractor. He's not a GC, but I had a great handyman, guy that has a renovation company helping me. Done a fantastic job. But yeah, just to have it, go from the studs to where it is now in a short amount of time. I mean, all that's left is we got to put floor down, put kitchen cabinets in.
Nice.
That's floor, kitchen cabinets, and some light fixtures, and it's ready to hit the market in 3 months. So.
Yep. And this is your first burr, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. So do you know kind of where your numbers are going to be? Do you know what you're going to rent it for yet?
Yeah. So I bought the property for $45,000. And what gave me a lot of hope is when we were running comps, one of the houses on the same street, 2 doors down, had just sold for $124,000.
Okay.
So I kind of knew, okay, well, here's where the market is. 120 in this house that I'm burring, it's 100 square feet bigger than the one that just sold. And so I was like, okay, I should be, worst case scenario, I should be in the ballpark of $125,000 if I can get this house back to where it needs to be. Mm. So we went in. I purchased a property for $45,000 with a rehab budget of $30,000. So my all in was going to be around $75,000. Yep. And the house we're expecting to appraise for $125,000. Mm. We'll cash out, somewhere around $100,000.
Yep.
I'll pay back my private investor that backed me on the deal, and I'm planning to rent the property for about $1,350 a month.
Nice.
It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, so we shouldn't have it. And it's going to be basically brand new. Mm. Every new paint, new sheetrock, new floor, new appliances, new cabinets, new roof.
Yeah.
So
what's nice about that is you won't have a whole lot of maintenance each year, so that's good.
Yeah.
And your numbers are honestly really good. Like you're going to have a pretty good cash flow on it, sounds like.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's going to turn out to be a good deal, which is what's got me excited to continue to push and grow and find more.
Yeah. So having just had this experience start to finish, what do you think, what could you tell our audience as far as getting yourself to go out and do it? Did you want to do this for a long time and then finally all of a sudden finally take action? And was it hard to do that? Or was it, you just found the right property and then you just executed it? Kind of tell the backstory of that.
Yeah. So, absolutely. I wanted to do this for a while. I've actually been in, this real estate group, the capitalist cartel that we're in. I've been in the group for a 1.5 years. And so I would go through these phases, where I was like, okay, I'm going to get a property. And so I started, obviously you've got to build your credibility, right? You've got to build your rapport with the people that are in the industry, with the real estate agents, with the wholesalers, with your private investors, with your banks. You've got to build some credibility. So I started working on that and I was like, okay. And I started to get traction. So I said, okay, I'm going to go out. I'm going to start finding properties. I'm ready to do this. And this was a year ago. And so I did. I went out and I started looking at properties, and I had real estate agents showing me properties, and I had wholesalers showing me properties, and I could never get the pieces to fit. I would have one property that they would accept my offer. I would get it under contract, and then my lenders that I have, a couple of private lenders, 2 or 3 people I could go to, all of their cash was tied up in other deals. Mm. So then that would fall through. And then I would have these lenders, these private lenders and private investors reach out to me and say, hey, I've got some cash. Do you have a deal? And I wouldn't be able to get anything under contract. Yeah. So I could never get the pieces to fit. And honestly, I just gave up. I was like, I got very frustrated. And, the success of my marketing company, it was there so much to the fact that I was like, okay, my marketing company, we're growing by 4 or 5 clients a month. Every month, we're doubling our revenue, consistently. And I'm taking time away from this business. I'm taking time away from these customers, from these new clients. And I'm chasing all these properties down that are not happening. And I got defeated. And I was like, there's no reason for me to be doing this. There's no reason for me to be out here chasing these deals that are not going to happen. I can't get the properties under contract, or it's just not working. Mm-hmm. When I could be focusing on my business that is working, that is growing. So I just kind of gave up. And I was like, if it's meant to happen, it'll happen. And so I focused back on, my marketing company for a while. And then I don't know. I saw a post on Facebook. A guy posted this house that I bought. It was a wholesaler, posted on Facebook. And I looked at the pictures of the house and I thought, I'm going to give this one more shot. I'm going to give it another shot. I'm going to see if I can make all the pieces fit this time. And we'll just see what happens. And so I went, looked at the property, talked to one of my private, one of my investors, said, hey, I think this is a good deal. Here's all the numbers. I ran all the numbers by him. He said, sounds good. He's like, I'm in. And so I was like, okay. So I put in the offer, got the house under contract, and all the pieces just kind of finally fell into place. So I feel like this has been my life a lot, right? And I have this bad habit that I've got to overcome, and I'm learning to overcome it with age and with experience. Is if I try something, the first time or the second time and it doesn't work out, I have this habit of just wanting to
be done with it.
Right. It's done. It is what it is. Walk away. Same thing, with I play music and I play guitar, and I was the same way trying to learn how to play guitar. I gave up.
Yeah.
I would try to learn a new chord. I would try to learn a new song, and I would get so frustrated I would just give up. And so it took me a while to learn how to play guitar doing that. And unfortunately, when I came into real estate, I approached it the same way. I was like, I'm used to things going my way. I'm used to things working out for me and winning and having things happen, successfully pretty early on. And when it doesn't happen, I have a tendency to get frustrated. And that was what happened with me with getting into real estate and getting my first property, is because I didn't win at first, because these deals didn't happen for me at first like I'm used to, because I'm stubborn and I'm spoiled. I gave up, and I was like, screw it. So I learned, again, that this is just something that I have to overcome, is if it doesn't happen the first time, keep at it.
Yeah.
Keep pushing, keep going. If it's meant to happen, it will happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done that multiple times myself. One of the things that really helped me is I read Randy Pausch's book. It's called The Last Lecture. And he talks about, in life, you get thrown these brick walls, and it's like you don't really know how to get through the brick wall. It's just like an obstacle that prevents you from having whatever you want. And those brick walls are there to keep the people that don't want it bad enough out. So, that really helped me, is just like being persistent, and something that doesn't work this time. Now, eventually, if you keep doing the same thing over and over, it's insanity, right?
Right.
But ultimately, if you don't give up, most of the time, things will work out.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, persistence is the key in anything in life, and it's, knowing what you want and having a clear understanding of the type of life that you want and what your goals are, and break down those walls and break down those barriers, and don't let anything stop you.
Yeah. So let's kind of circle back to more about your marketing company. You got earlier, you talked about like around the timing of when you started. Maybe go to that story. And
yeah, so I mean, so Ignited Digital Marketing, which is my marketing company in Tupelo, was really it was birthed out of COVID. Like I said, I'm a serial entrepreneur. This is my fourth business that I've had in 5 years, and I actually had all my previous three I had all at the same time. Started in 2019. Started my first selling packaging supplies, and built that up to about a $50,000 a month business, selling packaging supplies to manufacturing companies and distributors. And then I acquired an indoor birthday party facility with bounce houses, trampolines, trampoline park type business. I acquired it, and then I acquired a inflatable rental company, all just a few months before the pandemic of 2020. So, and they were going great. I mean, I was living that successful entrepreneur life, right? I mean, we were making money. Everything was going great. Business was booming. And then 3 months into having acquired these companies, we have COVID, and we have quarantine, and we have lockdown, and we had to shut down. I mean, all of my companies shut down, everything. And I was working in politics, a little bit too. We had an initiative that was coming up to be voted on. And so I'd been picked up to work on this initiative to help it get voted into law for the state of Mississippi. And all of it just went away when COVID hit. Man. I mean, my packaging business dried up because I couldn't get into manufacturing facilities to test product. I couldn't make sales calls. My birthday party facility, I canceled 65 birthday parties because of COVID. I had 65 parties already on the books.
Jeez, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and we canceled. We had to cancel every single one of them. We had to shut our facility down for 4 months. So I went from this successful serial entrepreneur into the pandemic to I had nothing. I had no money coming in. I mean, all of my business had just stopped. It had come to a complete standstill because of the pandemic. And so, we ended up, I was engaged at the time to be married, and we had 3 children. And so I'm sitting there with my soon-to-be wife and my 3 kids, and we're in this brand new house that we just got. We just got our dream house. We're living in this nice 3,000 square foot Victorian home that had been remodeled, and it was just a beautiful home. And we went from that to, that was in December of 2019 to it's now May of 2020, and we're having to sit down and have conversations like, we got to figure out what we're going to do. We can't afford this house anymore. We can't afford to live here. I have no income coming in at all. All of our businesses are shut down. We're legally not even allowed to open our companies right now. So I was like, what are we going to do? And so I knew that I had a background in sales, and I knew I had a background in marketing. And I just started kind of doing research on internet marketing, and I'd always done my own for my companies. And I started a trial run with iJump, my birthday party facility. I said, I'm going to come up with a way for people to feel safe to come and play in our facility, even though we have this pandemic going on. And I'm going to market it to the public and see how that goes. This will be my trial run of how good I am at actually doing, leveraging these digital marketing strategies. So we came up with the idea of just opening our facility for private parties only, that it would be a maximum of 15 guests. Private parties only, would not be open to the public. Mm-hmm. And then, we would do a discounted rate to come in and do the party. And then we went and bought these electrostatic sprayers to sanitize the building. And we had come up with all this marketing strategy of how we were going to let the public know, here's how we're going to keep you safe. If you want to get out, they had loosened up some of the restrictions on indoor businesses and public gatherings at this time. So I was like, if you want to get out, if you want to go somewhere and you want to feel safe, here's our facility, and here's how you can come and feel safe at our facility. And I got online and I started promoting it, and I started, doing a lot of different digital marketing strategies through Google pay-per-click ads and social media campaigns and things like that. And it worked. We started getting parties booked. People started coming and coming back to our facility. And we brought that business back. And we were we had one other birthday party facility in the area in North Mississippi. They didn't survive. They did not. After the pandemic, they never opened back up. So I built this business back. We survived, came back. I actually sold the company about 2 years ago now. I sold that business for twice what I bought it for.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
awesome. I sold the business for twice what I bought it for pre-pandemic.
Dang.
So that was what kind of taught me. I was like, okay, I do have something here. And so I kept researching, kept practicing. I started watching YouTube videos on how to build websites. When people ask me all the time, they're like, how'd you get started? I was like, well, watch the YouTube video.
That's how I started with the phone business. Just watched YouTube videos on how to fix phones.
Yeah, so. I picked up. Matter of fact, I picked up a client. I didn't even have a client yet, I had never built a WordPress website, but I had a client. I was like, hey, we need a website. I said, I'll figure it out. So I went and I started watching YouTube videos, and then I just got better and I got better and I got better, and then I started building a team. Once I started building customers, I started building a team around me. I started hiring people that had skills that I didn't have, the creativity skills. I've got some great people that work for me that can design things that I would never think to design. So I started building that team around me, and here we are. 3 years later, we went from one client and me watching YouTube videos to we've probably got somewhere around 35 to 40 customers now in 12 different states.
That's awesome. Man, that's really cool. And I like how you came out of all that adversity with the pandemic and everything for the event center business, or I don't know what you called it.
Birthday party facility is what we call it. Yeah. Indoor event facility, yeah.
Out of that to make it really successful and come out to double whenever you sold it. So that's really impressive.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a grind, and it's what you said, there's going to be walls. If you're serious about being an entrepreneur, if you're serious about being a self-made man, if you're serious about going out and building your dream, you have to be able to overcome obstacles. That's how you make it. It's the people that have the negativity, the people that say, well, you can't do that, or you won't do that, or it's going to be too hard. There's a reason why those people are not entrepreneurs. Yeah. There's a reason why those people are not out there building their own self-worth, is because they don't have that skill. And you know what? You may not have that skill. I didn't have that skill. Mm-hmm. But you can develop the tools that you need within yourself to acquire those skills.
Absolutely.
The people that you're around, the information that you consume, the way that you spend your habits, the daily habits that you build, your social networking that you build around you, all of those things can influence your ability to develop yourself as a person, to acquire the skills that you need to ultimately, achieve your goals, which is to have the life that you want to have.
Exactly. And I think one of the biggest obstacles for most people is they're too afraid to fail. There's so many people out there that won't even try because they're like, well, this failure is just way too scary. I'd rather play it safe. And that's a dream crusher for most people. So,
and a lot of times that failure that they feel in themselves and that fear of failure is projected onto them by other people.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that happened with me. I actually lost one of my closest friends over this exact thing. I had a real close friend of mine, or at least a guy that I thought was a real close friend, till another guy that was another close friend said, hey man, look, whatever Cody does, don't get involved. Stay away. Every business he's ever had fails. Do not get in business with him. You will lose everything. And I was like, I haven't had a business fail yet. I mean, we've gone through trials. We've gone through some hard times, I mean, a birthday party facility in the middle of a quarantine, there's not a whole lot you can do there.
Yeah.
So obviously, things haven't always been sunshine and rainbows, but I knew that I wasn't a failure. I knew that things that I were doing was working. I knew that things that I was doing was working. I knew that I was building the necessary pillars in my life to set myself up to have continued success. So I was like, why is someone who's supposed to be my friend projecting that onto me, projecting that failure onto me? And, you have to remove people like that from your life. Ultimately,
yeah.
You can't have anybody in your life that does not have a vision that aligns with your vision.
Yeah.
And it starts like you believe in yourself, right? If you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to believe in you.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So
and you have to see yourself, you have to visualize yourself as a successful person or whatever you want to accomplish. You have to see yourself accomplishing it, and then eventually you can make it happen. But it starts with the little steps and the daily habits every day, doing these things on routine to get you there. It's all these little things. It's not just one, okay, I did this one thing and now I'm ultimately successful. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, you have to live intentionally every day. Everything you do has to be with the intention of the purpose behind it. It's a purpose. There's a book that we read when I was a kid, The Purpose-Driven Life, right? It's a good spiritual Christian book about living, your life with a fulfillment for Jesus. But, I mean, you can apply that to everything. You can apply living with a purpose to being a father, to being a business person, to being anything, And a lot of times the people that you will find that try to drag you down or try to persuade you that you're not going to get to where you want to be, it's because they don't live their life with purpose. They don't have a purpose for their life, or they just haven't found that purpose yet.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, misery loves company,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of times those people that are unhappy or that they haven't found their purpose, they want you to stay right there with them.
Yeah, jealousy.
Right. They want you to stay right there with them because if you get out, now they're alone.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're down here without purpose all by themselves because you have found yours. And so I think you should always try to encourage those people and motivate those people. But a lot of times you just have to say, look, I'm sorry. I can't associate with you in this way anymore. You need to go find your purpose.
Yeah.
When you find your purpose, come back to me, but you're not going to drag me down just because you haven't found your calling yet, or you haven't found a way to believe in yourself. You haven't found that purpose that is driving your life.
Exactly. So you mentioned the believe in yourself, and that's my hashtag for a lot of my Facebook posts and stuff. What does believe in yourself mean to you?
It's like I said, if you don't have a belief in yourself, then you can't expect anybody else to believe in yourself either. And it's not always going to organically come for everybody at the same time. I know people that are successful that have believed in themselves and been driven since we were children, right?
Yeah.
And then there's some people that they don't find their purpose until, was it Colonel Sanders from Kentucky Fried Chicken?
Wasn't
he
70 something years old? Yeah.
He didn't find his purpose and believe in himself until he was into his 70s. So it hits everybody at different times. And there can be pivotal moments in a person's life that allows them to find that belief, and it happened for me. I was a very misguided kid. I struggled a lot to find my identity growing up into my youth and into my teenage years, and even after high school. I was very misguided. I was a problem child. I was getting into a lot of trouble, and up to that point in my life, I didn't believe in myself, but nobody else believed in me either. The only belief for me was that I was going to end up a product of the system. I was going to end up in jail. I was going to end up broke. I was going to end up and at this point in my life, that's what I was. I was broke. I was headed towards jail. I was headed in a really bad direction. And I knew that was not what I wanted. I love to prove people wrong. That's my favorite thing. I love proving anybody that doubts anything about me. It becomes my number one goal to prove them wrong. So at this point, even myself, I didn't believe in me. Nobody else believed in me. And I said, I'm going to prove myself and everybody wrong. I just don't know how I'm going to do it. And joining the military was that way for me. The military is what opened up an avenue for me to redesign myself as a person and to actually find a purpose for my life. And so I joined the Navy, and I went to boot camp, and I didn't even tell. So my grandmother, who is I lived with up until I graduated high school, she was the only person that even knew out of my whole family, friends, everybody, that I'd even joined the Navy. Nobody knew. I didn't tell anybody I was going to boot camp. She was the only one that knew. So I go to boot camp, and I go through basic training, and we get to our graduation ceremony. And when you go through basic training, you have a hat that says recruit on it. And when you finish, the very last test of basic training for the Navy is called battle stations, and you're up all night running all these different missions, taking all these tests, and ultimately you have to pass all these different scenarios. And when you finish, you've been up all night, you're exhausted, but you have this ceremony, and they take your hat off that says recruit, and your division commander, which is a drill instructor, then puts a hat on your head that says Navy. Now that's it. You've graduated. You are officially part of the Navy with that changing of the hat. So our division commander is DC-2 Bullard was his name. He came around and took my recruit hat, put my Navy hat on my head, and he said, Weaver, he said, I think you're going to do great things. He said, I believe in you, and I think you're going to do great things for the Navy. And that was, and I broke down crying. I was like, that was the first time in my life that I'd ever had a grown man look me in my eye and tell me he believed in me, or anybody really, tell me that they believed that I could do anything. My history was filled with being told I couldn't, being told you can't do that, you won't do that, you don't have what it takes to do that. And so for the first time ever, somebody that I looked up to and somebody that I respected said, I believe in you. And that was kind of where, and honestly, that changed my life. That was where my whole life changed. I said, I'm going to prove him right. Instead of trying to prove everybody wrong, I'm going to prove him right and show that I can do these things that I want to do.
I love that. People don't typically realize like the profound impact they have whenever they say something like that. He probably just, it just came out, but that had a huge impact on the whole trajectory of your life, and that's really cool.
It did. I mean, it honestly, it changed my life. And I attribute, anybody that sits down and has a conversation with me, they'll tell you I attribute everything that I have in my life and anything that I've accomplished to the decision that I made to join the Navy. And I needed some kind of structure and guidance, and that was where I found it.
That's really cool. So have you had a conversation with that guy since?
I haven't, and it's not that I haven't wanted to, but he specifically, one thing you got to think about boot camp is you're not there for people to be nice to you.
Yeah.
You're not there for people to be your friend. So the night before graduation, he specifically told every single one of us in our division, I'm not y'all's friend. Do not come find me when you graduate. We're not going to be friends. All right. And so y'all don't come find me. I don't want to hear from y'all. And we're like, all right. So I've honored his request. I'm sure, he was probably just saying that just to mess with us, but, and it would be cool to reconnect with him at some point. But up to this point, I have not really reached out to him, and I'll think about it, but I'm like, well, he said don't do this. He said, don't don't try to find him. So I'm going to continue to honor that for now.
That's funny. So how long ago was that? Like, was that right out of high school?
It wasn't right out of high school. It was probably about 6 months.
Okay.
About 6 months after high school. I was I was going to a vocational college to be a phlebotomist, which is you draw blood out of people's arms. And I was working as a cashier at a Chuck E. Cheese. And I was sleeping on a couch with two buddies in a trailer that should have been condemned because the whole thing was falling apart. And all we were doing was drinking, partying. And I was like, this is not a way that I want to live my life. And so, but that was how I lived for, 6 months after graduation. And then, I was going to school to be a phlebotomist, and I was doing clinicals at the hospital. Did not enjoy it. And plus I was like, there was no money in being a phlebotomist, at least not then. Like everybody that was a full-time phlebotomist at the hospital, they all had second jobs. I was like, why do I want to go to school? Why do I want to come do something that I still have to have a second job just to get by? It was like $13 an hour starting pay. And I was like, I don't want that, so. But anyway, so I ended up, I did that for a little while, had my revelation that I needed to make a change. Told my grandma, I was like, I joined the Navy. They told me I got 10 days. I leave for boot camp in 10 days. And I didn't tell anybody else. So I got out of boot camp, got stationed in Meridian, Mississippi. I was a grad and go. So I graduated. I didn't have any family at my graduation ceremony because nobody knew I was there. I just basically, to everybody that knew me, I just disappeared for 3 months. Except, my grandmother, she was the only one that knew where I was at. And so anyway, I was a grad and go. I graduated boot camp, and immediately they put me on a bus and sent me to my first duty station, which was Meridian, Mississippi. So I get down to Meridian, Mississippi. I get my phone turned back on, and I start calling. I start calling my family. I start calling my friends. Called my dad. I actually my 19th birthday was a few weeks into boot camp. And so I called my dad, and I was like, hey, it's Cody. He said, hey, tried to call you on your birthday, tell you happy birthday. Your phone was shut off. I was like, yeah, it was. And he's like, everything all right? He's like, we ain't heard from you in a while. I was like, yeah, I'm in the Navy. And he's like, you're in the Navy? I was like, yeah, I was in boot camp when you called me. And he's like, holy crap. And he turns around and tells my stepmom, he's like, Cody's in the Navy now. Like, that's all. I knew that it was time for a change, and I guess I was scared that if I talked about it too much or if I brought other people into my decision, it could influence it, and I'd want to back out. Because I had actually done that before. I was supposed to join the Navy before, and outside influences had convinced me not to. And I knew for a fact that this was something I needed to do. Mm-hmm. So I just left, just went.
Dang. That's a crazy story. I love that. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it was a interesting decision, but it's one that, like you said, it changed the trajectory of my life. So,
yeah. After after the Navy, where did you kind of move on?
Yeah, so I did 4 years in the Navy, and it got time for me to get out and to figure out what I was going to do, stay in, get out. What my next course of action was after my 4-year term. My main job in the Navy, I was what's called a logistics specialist. I worked in the supply room. We did all the parts, inventory, things like that. I was actually the hazardous materials manager. So I was in charge of like all the paint and oil and hydraulic fluids and all that stuff on the ship. But collaterally on the side, I was part of a program that's called VBSS, which stands for Visit, Board, Search, and Seizure. And I was part of a 12-man team that we ran boardings on ships in international waters for various reasons. Most of the time it was that, when you're in international waters, there's rules that you have to follow, that your vessel has to follow. You have to fly your nationality, your country's flag, things like that. So if there was a boat that was out there in our area, we were over in the Gulf, that for some reason just threw up a red flag, something was suspicious, I was on the team that we would go and board that vessel to see what's going on. Is everything cool? Everything on the up and up? And most of the time it was fishermen, it was merchants. They were transporting things like that. But I loved that part of my time in the service. I loved VBSS. I lived it. I grew up a very small, fragile kid, inside and out. I was very insecure. I was very small. I graduated high school. I was 120 pounds when I graduated high school. So when I got into the Navy and I started to develop that belief in myself, I said, I want to be something. I want to be something that when I look in the mirror, I'm proud of myself. And so I learned what VBSS was, and I was like, that's what I want to do. But obviously, I think I came out of boot camp at like 140 pounds when I came out of boot camp. But obviously, I was not where I could do anything like that. So I just got committed to it, and I was doing 2-a-days in the gym, and I was eating, and I devoted every bit of my life in the Navy was devoted to making the VBSS team. And then once I made the VBSS team, I wanted to be the best. I was like, I want to be the best I want to be the best shooter on our team. I want to be the best at hand-to-hand combat on our team. I want to be the fastest runner. I want every physical test that I take. I want to have the highest numbers. I want to be the number one guy. And so I devoted myself to being that. And so because of that, and I did really well. I don't want to sit here and say that I was the number one guy, because every guy that was on my team, they were all badasses. Like, excuse my language, but they were all just really, really awesome men in every way that they could be. But I got really good at what I did. I got to where I was in great physical shape. I was expert with any gun that they put in my hand. I was expert qualified. And so I had a really impressive record with what I did for that. Which ultimately led for my command to recommend that they thought what I should do next was to go to BUDS, which is SEAL school. I knew that was not what I wanted. I was like, I can't. And the reason why I knew is when I went through VBSS school, you go through tactical shooting, you go through hand-to-hand combat classes, you have to get choked unconscious and all this other stuff. And all of that was fine, but where I struggled was on the advanced swim and the rescue swim. One of the very last things you have to do is you have to recreate a scenario to where if you're on a vessel and things go wrong, you jump over the side. You jump off the vessel into the water, and then you have to get rescued out of the water. So one of the things we had to do was we had a buddy that we went through all of school with. We were paired up, and you went through the whole school with your buddy. And mine was a really good friend of mine, FC2 Hoggard, Mark Hoggard, really good friend of mine. Love the dude to death. But he was significantly bigger than I was at this time. And so when we went through our rescue swim, we had 2 minutes, I think it was 2 or 3 minutes. We had to swim to him, to our partner, grab them, and bring them back to safety within the time frame. But we were wearing tactical gear, both of us. I was 150 pounds at the time, and Mark was probably 215, 220.
Oh, wow.
I could not get him. I could get to him, but I could not get him back to safety in the allotted time. And so they benched me. They put me on the bench. They set me out, and this was just a few days before graduating VBSS school, and this was all I had committed myself to. This was what I was going to do. And here I am a few days from graduating school, and I'm benched. They have put me out. They're about to kick me out. And so I'm sitting on the bench, and one of the instructors, he comes up, and he was a former Navy SEAL. He comes up and he sits next to me, and he's like, "What's the deal, Weaver? What's going on?" He's like, "You've done great with everything. Why can you not get your partner back?" I said, he's too much bigger than me. His size is too much of a difference for me, and I'm just not strong enough to get him back. Because honestly, my legs are not strong enough to get him back within the 3-minute time frame. He said, "How much do you weigh?" I said, "I weigh about 150 pounds." And the instructor said, "Well, I weigh $180. Do you think you can get me?" I said, "I'll give it my best shot." He said, "All right." He's like, "You got one last chance." He's like, "We're going to get in that water." He said, "If you can swim down there and get me back, I'll pass you." He said, "But here's what you got to realize. If you guys get in a situation out there and you really have to save him, you're not going to be able to." I said, "Yes, sir." He's like, "So if you pass, you have to make a commitment to get stronger so that you can save your teammate." I said, "Yes, sir, I will." And so we jumped in the water, and I passed. So
Awesome.
I got him back, and I passed, and I ultimately made the VBSS team. But because of that, I knew that after my command had recommended for me to go to BUDS, to go to SEAL school, that is a whole new level of swimming and being in the water and water combat. And I was like, look, I know if I go, I know that I'm not that guy. I know what my strengths are. I know what my weaknesses are. And SEAL school is not for me. But I'm good with heights. And I love jumping out of planes. I was like, I'll do that all day long. So I was like, I'd like to go to the Army. There was a program that if you were an E5 in the Navy, you could use this program called Blue to Green, and you could go straight into the Army. You didn't have to go back to basic or anything. So my plan was to use the Blue to Green program because I was an E5 and I qualified to use that program, and the fact that my command had recommended that I go to BUDS to go be a SEAL and go into the Army and go be an airborne ranger. I was like, I'll jump out of a plane with a gun all day long. That sounds cool. I want to go do that. So I called the Army, called the recruiting office. I said, hey, here's who I am. I'm E5, Petty Officer Weaver. I've been recommended for BUDS. I don't want to do that. I want to come into the Army and I want to be a ranger. How can I do that? They said, well, you got to come into the Army and hold a regular MOS for at least a year first. Infantry, something like that. Then you can apply and we'll see. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I was like, I've already got this recommendation for BUDS. I've already got all these qualifications. I've already done all this stuff. I want to be a ranger. And they said, well, we don't really care what the Navy thinks about you. The Army will make up its own mind what we feel like you can do. I was like, okay.
I wouldn't be very happy with that answer.
Right. So I said, okay. So at the end of that conversation, I sat down. I was like, I can go to BUDS. I can apply to go to BUDS like my command wants me to do, which I don't want to do. And I feel like is not meant for me. Or I can go into the Army and I can go be infantry, which I don't want to do. Or I can go home and test my waters. And so as I thought about it, over the next few weeks, and I was on the ship, everybody on the ship told me the same thing. Why would you ever want to get out of the Navy? This is the easiest job you'll ever have. You're told where to be, when to be there, and you got a guaranteed paycheck. Why would you ever want to get out? And every time somebody said that to me, it made me want to get out. I was like, I don't want that. I don't want a guaranteed paycheck for showing up where I'm supposed to show up because somebody's telling me to. Yeah. I'm going to figure this out on my own.
Sounds like you're an entrepreneur at heart.
Exactly. It goes back to that. Anytime somebody tells me I can't do something, I'm going to go do it. And everybody was telling me, you can't get out of the Navy. Why would you ever want to do that? I was like, okay, now I want to even more. Mm-hmm. So that was leading up to that. So anyway, I did all that. And then fortunately, the logistics side, my experience as a logistics specialist in the Navy set me up for a really good job working in transportation and logistics as a manager and in management out of the Navy. And I did that for several years up until I decided to pursue the entrepreneurial journey. So,
dang. So do you have any cool stories from the Navy that you could tell us without having to kill me after you tell me?
Yeah, we did a few cool things, man. I got to get rescued out of a rescue basket into a helo one time. And you can find this if you Google USS Jason Dunham and my name, you can actually see pictures of the helo basket picking me up and all this stuff. The pictures are still online.
That's cool.
But what it was we had to the way that the VBSS thing works, we all had regular jobs. Everybody on our team had a regular job. They were either engine men or they were firefighters or they worked in supply like me or they worked in navigation, whatever. We all had regular jobs. And the way that it would work is they would call it over the intercom system. They would say, set, MEO, which stands for Maritime Interceptive Operations, which means, hey, they found something. They want us to start getting ready to go check it out. So they would call it over the speaker system. We would start getting ready. We'd start getting our gear on. We'd go up to the boat deck. And then our boarding officer in charge would say, hey, here's what's going on. Here's the mission. Here's what we're about to go do. So one time, it was like 10 o'clock at night. I just gotten into my rack to go to sleep, closed my eyes, and 10 o'clock at night, intercom comes on, set MEO phase 1. I'm like, it's 10 o'clock at night. There's no way we're about to go run a boarding. So I called up to the boat deck where the boarding officer was, and I was like, "Hey, it's Weaver." I was like, "Is this real?" And he's like, "Yep, we got an emergency distress call. We got to go figure out what's going on." So I was like, all right. So we all get up. We up to the boat deck, and this was very, very, very turbulent waters. I mean, the ship was getting tossed around. But anyway, our ship had received a medical distress call from a fishing vessel that somebody on this fishing vessel was having a medical emergency, and we were the closest, entity to that vessel to provide any kind of help. So what usually takes a few minutes for us, I mean, I'm talking less than 5 minutes. We're in the water, we're deployed, we're on our way, and we're on their boat in just a matter of minutes. Took a series of hours this evening because of how rough the water was.
Jeez.
So we get over there to them, and they've got their anchor dropped, which is the worst thing you can do in rough waters because the anchor was weighing down the boat. So every time a wave would hit, that anchor would slam their vessel back down. So their vessel was literally just slamming back and forth, and you could see just people sliding. It was like something from a cartoon is what it looked like.
And how many people were on it?
Probably 10. There's probably 10 people on this. I think, if I remember right, it was a fishing vessel. Anyway, so we go and we take our dock from our ship, our corpsman. We get there. She checks out the guy. It was just kidney stones. So they're like, she gave him some morphine. He's fine. Leave him. Let's get out of here. So anyway, the next day we go to debrief. And our boarding officer is giving us our debrief, and he's like, if that would have been an actual emergency where we needed to get him off that boat and get him to land and get him to a hospital, he probably would have died the way that we are trained to get people off. The way that we're trained to get people off is we put them in a stretcher, we tie, a line to them, and then we lower them down into our little boat that we use. It's called a rib from their vessel. Mm-hmm. We strap them into a stretcher and we lower them down. Mm-hmm. That would have killed him. The water was so bad, there was no way we could have done that. Mm-hmm. So we had to come up with a contingency plan of if we ever run into a situation like this again, we're in rough waters, the sea's bad, and we need to get somebody off of their vessel, how are we going to do it? So we decided that we would use one of our helos that was with the ship and a rescue basket. We just bring the helo over, lower a rescue basket, load them into the basket, the helo would take off, and we would airlift them instead of trying to put them down into our boat. So we, when you come up with a plan, you have to practice it, make sure it's going to work. So I got to be the victim of the training mission to where I was injured down in an engine room on our ship. They loaded me to a stretcher, carried me all the way out to the back, and then the helo put the rescue basket down, and I got in the rescue basket. Helo took off, and so I'm sitting in a basket over, probably, several hundred feet in the air, just flying through the air, dangling out of a helo while they raised me up to the helo. So that was cool. That was one of the cooler experiences. But other than that, we had a shark, some guys that were shark hunters. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we would do when we would run a boarding is, when everything was cool, because it was always just honest men and women just trying to get by, and so we would always take gifts to give them, saying, hey, look, we're just here to protect you. We're here for you. Thank you so much for letting us come on. We had an interpreter that did all of our interpreting for us, but we would take hats and sunglasses and work gloves and boxes of Pop-Tarts and things like that. That's just cool. To give them, to say, hey, look, thank you for letting us come and check out. We're just trying to keep you safe. Please take these gifts as a thank you for letting us come and check out your vessel. And so one time, one of them was, they were shark hunters, and whatever tribe they were from or their village or whatever, their belief was they could not receive a gift unless they gave a gift. So we're trying to give them Pop-Tarts, and they're dragging a shark up. They're trying to give us this shark to take this dead shark back, and we're like, we can't take that shark. And our interpreter's like, they're not taking the Pop-Tarts unless you take the shark. And so anyway, we ended up leaving with our Pop-Tarts, not the shark. So that was pretty funny.
That's awesome. So that was off the Gulf of Persia, right?
Yeah. So we were we were somewhere over in the Gulf and around Iran and Yemen and around there. We did, I guess we did 7 or 8 port calls. The way it works in the Navy is you go out, you run all your missions out at sea, and then you'll pull into a port of call. You'll pull into a country for a few days to just relax. It's called Liberty. So we'd pull in. Like the first place we pulled in was Greece. So we went to Suda Bay, Greece. went to Odessa, Ukraine. I was in Odessa, Ukraine on the exact day 10 years before it was invaded by Russia. On the day Russia invaded Ukraine, a decade before it, on that day, I was in Odessa, Ukraine.
Oh, wow.
So went there, went to Israel. I've been to Jerusalem. We went to Italy.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so I got to go check out Rome. Went to Portugal, Dubai, Bahrain. So we were all around in that area. It was a really, really cool, life-changing experience.
And that was all over the course of this 4 years?
So that was, my deployment was 2012, 2013. So all of that was in the course of 10 months.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, we would go out and stay out to sea for 30 or 40 days, and we'd pull in somewhere for 2 or 3 days.
Dude, what's nuts is that's almost all the places that are like my dream destination.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. Like Dubai, Jerusalem, that's a lot of those places. That's
Yeah,
really cool.
yeah,
Italy.
it was a really, really cool experience. The only place we didn't get to go that we were supposed to was Egypt. We were supposed to get to go to Egypt, and that didn't happen. So that was kind of a bummer. But everything else, it was really cool to see life outside of America. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, because you don't realize how things are in other places. You think, you see it on TV. Mm-hmm. Outside of what you see on TV, you don't really know what life is like outside of the United States if you've never been outside the United States. I remember when we pulled into the first port we pulled into was Suda, Greece, and we were on a tour bus headed to a winery to go, do a wine tasting, and we're riding through this town in Suda, Greece, and our tour guide's telling us all about Greece and all this cool stuff. And I don't remember who it was on the bus, but somebody noticed that every building, these were all like apartments. These were all where people lived, and every building had a big metal tank on top of it. Every building had a big metal tank on top of it. And so somebody finally asked and said, what are all these tanks? And our tour guide said, well, in America, y'all have hot water heaters. We don't have hot water heaters here. Those metal tanks heat up from the sun and gravity feed warm water to everybody in the building. So everybody in that building gets warm water from that tank, and it's gravity fed to everybody in the building.
Dang.
And I was like, wow. I would never think about that being, and that's, and this is not a third world country. This is Greece. Mm-hmm. It's outside of little things like that, it's very similar to life here.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, so stuff like that you don't really realize until you get over there and you see it, and you realize, okay, that life is a lot different in other places than it is here.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so you're out of the the Navy, and then did you go on to like the sales job, or was there something in between there?
So my first job was working for a logistics company. I had a desk job. I was a transportation supervisor, coordinator. I don't remember what my title was, but I was in charge of trucks that were delivering flatbeds of steel to a company called American Railcar Industries that built tanker cars for the railroad. And so I was in charge of all the deliveries, all the steel deliveries that were coming in out of there, as well as scheduling trucks to move parts and different, freight shipments of various nature to all of their plants across the United States. It was a desk job, and I hated it. I didn't like being stuck behind a desk, and I was young. I was 23, and this is a metal yard where a lot of blue collar, middle-aged, very manly men work, and they didn't appreciate a 23-year-old kid being in management. So I had to deal with a lot of. I'd come in, like my office had the safety kit in it, so I couldn't lock my office, and I'd come in and I'd have people, they'd mess with my stuff. And so I was just like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be working at this, sitting behind this desk, coming in and trying to find things that belong to me in my office, because I'm having to deal with all these disgruntled, middle-aged men coming in here. They don't appreciate this kid that's got an office over here. Jeez. So I transitioned out of that, and I went to work for a trucking company as an operations manager. This was in Jonesboro, Arkansas, which is where I'm from. And that job, I was a freight outbound supervisor. I was operations supervisor for this trucking company. That moved me to Mississippi, to Tupelo. Did that for a year and a half. Decided I wanted to be in sales. I was like, man, I want to be in sales. I'd become really good friends with a very successful sales rep from Jonesboro for this company. And I saw the kind of money she was making, and that she was just kind of out there doing her own thing. She wasn't tied to a desk. I was like, I want to do that. I want to go out and sell, and I want to make that kind of money. I mean, we're talking $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month. Yeah. I was like, I want to make that. I don't want to sit here and make $60,000 a year. I want to go make $60,000 in a few months.
Yeah.
So I reached out to the district sales manager over the company, and I said, hey, I'm an operations supervisor down here in Tupelo. I'm the outbound freight supervisor here. I said, I want to get into sales. What do I need to do? So he mailed me 2 books. I think the author's name is Neil Rackham, and one is called Spin Selling, and one's Major Account Sales Strategies. He said, I'm mailing you these 2 books. Read them. Get back with me. I said, all right. So I went every day. I worked. I was single at the time, didn't have any kids. So I would get off work and I would go to this little bar called Gabriel's. And that's where I would eat dinner, and I'd have me a couple drinks. And every night I would read a few chapters, and I would take notes from these books. And after about, I don't know, it probably took me 2 or 3 weeks to read both of them. And I'd written up book reports on both of them and sent it. So I emailed my reports off to him. I said, hey, I read these books. I typed you up a couple of book reports. Here's what I felt like were the highlights and the takeaway of these books. Let me know what I need to do from here. Found out a few days later that they ended up sending my book reports out to all the managers in the district. Like, hey, this is what initiative looks like. This is what you should be doing. Yeah. And the next week he came down and interviewed me and ultimately hired me as the account executive, and I got to build and manage a 7-figure book of business in the freight industry in North Mississippi. So that was kind of my transition before I started my entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, that's really cool. As a manager, I'd be blown away if I was sent this report and you went all the extra mile and everything. That was really cool that you did that. What went off in your mind for you to think to do that?
I knew that it would look good. I knew that it would be something that would impress him because I was a leader in the Navy. I knew how things went. I had people that reported to me. I had things that impressed me from some of my junior sailors. Mm-hmm. So I kind of just knew that this was something that I could do that might win me some brownie points and help me get a little extra favor. Yeah. So.
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite business book?
I mean, I do an annual reading of Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm not a big reader. I do a lot of audiobooks, but probably, Spin Selling and Major Account Sales Strategies. Those are the 2 books that changed the trajectory of my civilian career. Like me reading those books, and I still have them. I still read those books all the time. They sit on a shelf right behind my desk in my office, and I read them all the time. But those books hold a significance in my life just because of the impact that they had on my career and the trajectory of my life. So I've got to probably say those are my favorites. Yeah.
And then Rich Dad Poor Dad. I haven't read the other 2, but Rich Dad Poor Dad, that was probably the most influential book on my life other than the Bible.
Yeah, so. I listen to it. I do. I've got it on audiobook, and every January I start it. And so I'm on like track 27 right now. I go to the gym in the morning and I just turn it on and I try to get my 10,000 steps in while I'm listening to Rich Dad Poor Dad. So that's my annual listening. Mm-hmm.
So how can our audience connect with you?
So you can find me on Facebook, Cody Weaver. You can find me. You can find my company, Ignited Digital Marketing, on Facebook. I'm on Instagram a little bit, not much. But social media, with me working in social media, that's the easiest way to get a hold of me. My girlfriend gets upset. She's like, "You're always on Facebook." I'm like, "Babe, I know, but this is how I make money. Like, it's different for me. Facebook that's where my money comes from." I was like, if I'm not on Facebook, I'm not making any money. So, I'm pretty easy to get through just about any social media channel.
Okay. And then do you have a final message for our audience?
Yeah, I would just say this, I was destined to be a problem. Everything that I was supposed to be was nothing. I graduated at the bottom of my class. I had a very, very turbulent childhood that was filled with drugs and alcohol, and I was removed from my home when I was 12 years old and placed with my grandmother. And I struggled. I was bullied. I struggled with depression, anxiety. I struggled with addiction. I struggled with falling into the wrong crowds. I was supposed to be nothing. I was supposed to not amount to anything. Everybody told me. My grandpa, my grandpa, when I was Christmas one day, my great grandpa just passed away, and he bought me a guitar. I wanted to learn how to play guitar, and on Christmas, my grandpa said he'll never learn how to play that guitar. He's not ever going to do anything, So I had family, friends, teachers. No one really saw anything in me until I found the right place that I belonged, and I found the right person to see a belief in me, and it changed my life. So I would say if you come from a similar background, if you struggle with belief in yourself, no matter where you come from, you can always turn your life around. You can always recreate who you are and re-find your purpose in life. If I can do it, I promise you can do it. So that would be my message, is just, no matter where you come from, it's not, I'm a massive Jelly Roll fan. I love Jelly Roll. That's my favorite human being on the planet right now. And I went and saw him in concert, and he said something, and I believe it's true. And he said, your windshield is bigger than the rearview mirror for a reason. What's in front of you is way more important than what's behind you. So,
well, that's awesome. Man, I love your message. That's incredible. And I really feel like a lot of people get a lot out of that. So
thanks for having me. This has been fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for watching the Kurima podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.